Welcome to the Semper AI Digest. I'm Tomas, your AI research lead, always scanning the horizon for what's next.
And I'm Aiva. Together, we keep you sharp, informed, and ahead of the curve.
Let's get into it.
All right, hold on to your keyboards because Anthropic just dropped some absolutely massive news today. We're talking Claude Managed Agents at scale, a brand new AWS platform launch, and what might be the biggest shift in how enterprises deploy AI agents we've seen all year. I'm Tomas.
And I'm Aiva. Plus, OpenAI's parameter golf competition just wrapped up with some fascinating insights about the future of AI research collaboration. And Google just announced something called the Google Book that has me scratching my head a little. Welcome to Semper AI Digest.
Oh, and we've got some quick hits that'll blow your mind, including Claude's Constitution as an audiobook, which honestly sounds like the nerdiest bedtime story ever, and I'm absolutely here for it.
Right? Okay, but let's dive into this Anthropic news because this feels like a pretty significant moment for enterprise AI deployment.
Absolutely. So here's what happened. Anthropic announced Claude Managed Agents, and this is basically them saying, hey, enterprises, you don't need to build your own agent infrastructure anymore. We'll handle all of that for you. Think of it like the difference between hosting your own email server versus using Gmail for business.
That's actually a really good analogy. And they're not just talking about basic chatbots here, right? They're offering what they call advisor strategies, code execution, web search, basically the full toolkit.
Exactly. And here's the part that really caught my attention. They're promising that all new features ship the same day they go live on the native Claude API. That's huge for enterprises because usually there's this massive lag between when a feature gets announced and when it actually shows up in managed services.
That does sound appealing from an enterprise perspective. No more waiting 6 months for the managed service to catch up with the latest capabilities. But I'm curious about the scale part of this announcement. When they say at scale, what are we actually talking about?
Well, they're positioning this as a full managed service where Anthropic operates everything behind the scenes. So instead of a company having to hire a team of AI engineers, figure out infrastructure, worry about rate limits, deal with model updates, Anthropic handles all of that complexity.
Right, which makes sense given how complex agent deployment has become. I mean, we've seen so many companies struggle with going from a cool proof of concept to actually having hundreds or thousands of agents running reliably in production.
And that's exactly the pain point they're targeting. It's like the classic build versus buy decision, but for AI agents. Most companies probably shouldn't be building their own agent infrastructure any more than they should be building their own databases from scratch.
True. And this ties into something bigger I've been thinking about. We're starting to see this clear separation between companies that build foundational AI infrastructure and companies that use AI to solve business problems. This managed agents approach really accelerates that trend.
Oh, that's a great point. It's almost like we're moving towards an AI as a service model where the complexity gets abstracted away. Speaking of infrastructure, though, the second big piece of news is that Claude Platform is now available directly on AWS.
Okay, wait, didn't Claude already work with AWS through Bedrock? What's different here?
Great question. So Claude was already available through Amazon Bedrock, where AWS acts as the data processor. But this new Claude Platform on AWS appears to be a more direct integration. It's like the difference between using a third-party app through an app store versus having that app built directly into your operating system.
So potentially better performance, tighter integration, maybe more control over deployment configurations?
Exactly, and probably lower latency too. If you're running Claude agents at enterprise scale, every millisecond of response time matters when you're processing thousands of requests. Having that more direct AWS integration could be a game changer for performance.
This also feels strategically important for Anthropic. AWS has such massive enterprise reach, this could really accelerate Claude adoption in large organizations that are already heavily invested in the AWS ecosystem.
Totally. And it's interesting timing too, because we're seeing this broader trend where AI companies are realizing that having the best model isn't enough. You also need the best deployment infrastructure, the best developer experience, the best enterprise integrations.
Right. And that brings us to this fascinating OpenAI announcement about their parameter golf competition, which I think actually illustrates some of these same themes about AI research and collaboration.
Oh man, the parameter golf results are so cool. So for anyone who missed this, OpenAI ran this competition where researchers had to build the most effective models using the fewest possible parameters. Think of it like trying to build the fastest car using the smallest possible engine.
And they got over 2,000 submissions from more than 1,000 verified GitHub accounts, which is pretty impressive participation for what was essentially a research challenge.
What I love is the variety of approaches people tried. We're talking about quantization, depth recurrence, something called TTT LoRa, state space models, HNets, JPA. It's like a greatest hits album of cutting-edge ML techniques.
But here's what really caught my attention in OpenAI's write-up. They mentioned that auto research made iteration dramatically faster and led to these emergent bulletin boards, issue threads, unofficial leaderboards, agent-built write-ups. That sounds like AI agents were helping participants collaborate and share knowledge.
Yes, and OpenAI describes it as a glimpse of where interaction with AI is headed. Humans setting taste and direction, agents helping explore, coordinate, and share what works. That's such a beautiful way to think about human-AI collaboration.
It really is. Instead of humans doing all the research work manually or AI doing everything autonomously, you have this collaborative model where humans provide the creative direction and judgment, while AI agents handle the exploration and coordination work.
And OpenAI says their goal was to make ML research accessible to anyone, anywhere. If these kinds of AI-assisted research competitions become common, we could see a huge democratization of who can contribute to AI progress.
That's exciting, but it also makes me think about quality control. With research becoming more accessible, how do we ensure the insights that emerge are rigorous and reliable?
That's where I think the community aspect becomes really important. When you have over 1,000 researchers participating, with agents helping coordinate and share findings, you get this natural peer review process happening in real time.
True. And the fact that they required verified GitHub accounts probably helped with credibility. Plus, having agents help with write-ups and documentation means the knowledge gets captured and shared more systematically than it might in a traditional research setting.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, we need to talk about this Google announcement because honestly, I'm not quite sure what to make of it.
You're talking about the Google Book, right? Google's first laptop designed for Gemini intelligence?
Yeah, and I'll admit, this one has me scratching my head a little. The announcement says it's crafted for heavyweight performance, built with Gemini at the core, and perfectly synced with our Android phone.
Okay, so on one hand, I can see the appeal of a laptop specifically optimized for AI workloads. If you're running Gemini models locally, or if there are special hardware optimizations for Gemini's architecture, that could provide real performance benefits.
Right, like maybe they've included specialized chips for AI inference or optimized the cooling system for sustained AI workloads. Apple did something similar with their neural engine chips.
And the Android integration could be compelling. Imagine seamless handoff of AI tasks between your phone and laptop, or having your personal AI assistant synchronized across devices with your full context and preferences.
That would be pretty slick. Start a conversation with Gemini on your phone during your commute, then seamlessly continue on your laptop when you get to the office.
But here's what I'm curious about. Is this running Gemini models locally on the device, or is it just optimized for cloud-based Gemini interactions? Because that distinction matters a lot for performance, privacy, and offline capabilities.
Great question. And Google's announcement doesn't really clarify that. If it's just optimized for cloud interactions, then built with Gemini at the core might be more marketing speak than technical innovation.
Exactly, and we won't know until fall when it actually launches. But the timing is interesting, releasing an AI-optimized laptop right as we're seeing this explosion in AI agent deployment.
Speaking of agents, we've got some really interesting research news from Microsoft that ties back to our earlier conversation about AI collaboration.
Right, this social reasoning bench study. Microsoft researchers found this pattern where AI agents can execute tasks competently, but they consistently fail to optimize for the user's best interests, even when explicitly instructed to do so.
This is fascinating because it gets at one of the core challenges in AI alignment. The agents aren't technically failing at their tasks. They're doing what they're asked to do, but they're not necessarily doing what would be best for the human user.
It's like the difference between following instructions literally versus understanding the underlying intent and optimizing for that. A human assistant might notice that what you're asking for isn't actually what would help you most and suggest a better approach.
Exactly, and this has huge implications as we deploy more agents in enterprise settings. If an AI agent can competently execute a marketing campaign but doesn't understand that it might be damaging the company's long-term brand reputation, that's a problem.
And it's not something you can easily fix with more training data or better prompting. It requires the agent to understand complex social dynamics and long-term consequences.
Which brings us back to that collaborative model we were discussing with the OpenAI parameter golf. Maybe the solution isn't making agents better at social reasoning, but rather designing human-AI collaboration systems where humans provide that strategic oversight.
That makes a lot of sense. Use AI agents for the tasks they're already good at, execution, coordination, information processing, while keeping humans in the loop for judgment calls about what actually serves people's best interests.
All right, let's rapid fire through some quick hits because we've got some fun ones today.
First up, Claude's Constitution is now available as an audiobook, read by two of its authors, Amanda Askell and Joe Carlsmith.
I love this so much. For anyone who hasn't read Claude's Constitution, it's basically the document that defines Claude's values and decision-making principles. Having it as an audiobook with commentary from the authors is like getting director's commentary for AI ethics.
And they include a Q&A about the writing process and the philosophies that shaped it. If you're interested in AI alignment and safety, this sounds like essential listening.
Next, Claude just launched something called Agent View in Claude Code. It's basically one unified list of all your coding sessions, available as a research preview.
This might sound simple, but it's actually a big deal for developer workflow. Instead of hunting through different conversations to find that piece of code Claude helped you debug last week, everything's organized in one place.
It's those kinds of quality of life improvements that make the difference between a cool demo and a tool you actually want to use every day. And speaking of tools people actually use,
We've got Greg Isenberg sharing a complete course on building managed AI agent businesses using tools like Hermes Agent, Orgo, Obsidian, and others.
what's interesting about his approach is the business model: unlimited agents, unlimited usage, all infrastructure included. The customer just gets what feels like a digital employee without thinking about tokens or models.
And his advice about not niching down too fast is smart. Try different industries, marketing agencies, law firms, insurance, see where the market pulls you, then go vertical.
Plus his insight about executive pain points being universal. Too many emails, too many meetings, too many follow-ups. Solve those fundamental problems first, then layer in industry-specific capabilities.
It's a great example of how the managed agents trend we discussed earlier is creating opportunities for entrepreneurs, not just big tech companies.
And finally, OpenAI launched something called the OpenAI Deployment Company, a separate entity that's majority owned by OpenAI and brings together 19 investment firms and consultancies to help businesses deploy AI in production.
This feels like OpenAI's answer to the same challenge Anthropic is addressing with managed agents, bridging the gap between having access to powerful AI models and actually deploying them successfully in enterprise environments.
Right, but instead of a pure technology solution, they're taking more of a services approach, getting consulting firms and system integrators involved in helping businesses figure out how to actually use AI effectively.
Which makes sense because often the biggest barrier isn't the technology, it's organizational change management, workflow redesign, training people on new tools. You need human expertise for that.
Exactly, and having it be a separate company gives them more flexibility to partner with competitors' technologies when that's what the client needs, rather than being locked into only recommending OpenAI solutions.
True, it's less about pushing GPT models and more about solving actual business problems with whatever AI tools work best.
So looking at everything we've covered today, there's this really clear theme emerging around making AI deployment easier and more accessible.
Right, whether it's Anthropic's managed agents, OpenAI's deployment company, or even these community research initiatives, everyone's working on the same fundamental problem. How do we bridge the gap between AI research and real-world impact?
And I think that's actually the most important story from today. The technology is getting incredibly sophisticated, but the real innovation is happening in deployment, collaboration, and integration.
Which is probably where we'll see the biggest competitive advantages over the next year or two. Having the best model matters, but having the best ecosystem for actually using that model might matter even more.
Absolutely. And for anyone building with AI right now, all of these announcements represent new tools and approaches you can leverage instead of building everything from scratch.
Whether you're an enterprise looking at managed agents, a researcher interested in collaborative AI tools, or an entrepreneur thinking about starting an AI services business, there are more options and opportunities than we've ever had before.
The landscape is changing incredibly fast. And honestly, that's what makes this space so exciting to follow.
And that's why we're here every episode, to help you stay on top of all these developments and understand what they mean for the future of AI.
If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with someone who's trying to keep up with the AI world. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our analysis of the latest developments.
Until next time, keep building with AI, and we'll keep bringing you the news and insights you need to stay ahead of the curve.
This has been Semper AI Digest. I'm Tomas.
And I'm Aiva. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.